So welcome everybody to Off the Record, Airtable Secrets and Lore. This is, I think it's like week 31 or 32. We're a group of Airtable users who are exploring new ways to use Airtable to optimize our businesses and lives. And we're open to hearing from anyone about your experience, good or bad, using Airtable to make a positive impact in the world. We attempt to promote people coming from any level to share your ideas or ask questions. We also share our experiences, tips, and practices and offer ways to get help and get involved in the community. We meet every Wednesday from 7 p.m. Eastern time to 8 p.m. Eastern time. So to kick things off, and if you want to join, you can go to www.videowithben.com or just join the Airtable community Facebook group and you can watch us live in there. So the plan for this week is to go through the least liked app, the Page Designer app. Or one of my least liked apps, but I see a lot of people wanting to know how to use it, wanting to know how to create documents in Airtable. And I guess part of this episode will be talking about why it might not be the best solution. I know Kuvan has a solution. Kuvan, I want to talk to you later about a potential collaboration to promote that.
And I have yet another potential solution too that's in the works, but
awesome.
We can discuss that later.
Awesome. So yeah, that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I know I have some that I can pull up to show. But if anybody else has any other page designer solutions that you want to show in addition to the ones that I'll create, we can definitely do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring up a template base from the Airtable universe, and then we're gonna work out of that one. And I can actually share screen as well. All right, so here we are, and if we start with a template, I think a good one, I know invoices are super common. I've done like 3 of them this week using the 3 automations with those this week with Google Docs instead of this, but the first page designer that I created was in the first page designer that I created was an Invoice. What do you guys use Invoice or the page designer for?
I don't know. I think I made like recipe cards from page designer before, but I don't really use it that often.
So I use Page Designer when I have to. So I've used it for anything from name tags to work orders to reports, all kinds of stuff.
I bet an art collection would be good to show on Page Designer. So we're going to use a sales CRM, which I don't think has invoicing on it, but then we'll do a few of these. Awesome. So this is the sales CRM, very basic structure. If you've watched many of my videos on my channel, it's in this base with a lot of edits on it. I don't think there's any, I need to move it to a pro plan. So I guess the first limitation of Page Designer is you need to have it in a pro plan. So let me go move that there. Starting off strong here. Does anybody know of any Airtable news this week?
They sent out an email that was a kind of roundup of recent changes.
Was that the what's new in 2?
Yeah.
I saw that got posted in the Airtable community. Awesome. So these are some of the apps over here. If you haven't ever used the Page Designer, it'll be up here in the app drawer. So if this isn't open, you can just hit apps up here. You can create different dashboards in here. So I don't think it's in here yet. Yeah. So we'll create a new dashboard. Coming up here, hit new dashboard. What do you guys, should we do an invoice first or something simpler first?
Probably simple.
Sim-
and then
Okay. So we'll actually do the art collection. Put that there. So here we have the My Art collection from the Airtable universe. Expand this a little bit. So this was, I've not ever been in this space, but we have artists, we have art pieces. You can see right now they're all unique to different artists. And let's see. So we could, there's basically two that we could create here. So Page Designer pulls everything out of one record. So we could do it like have a page designer of an artist, or we could have a page designer of art pieces. And if we did the artists, then we could have art pieces as like a subtable, if I remember right. Let's see. So this is an important note. If you have a page designer that you want to do multiple pages on, you have to change this record size here to custom, and then change this height to, if you want twice as many pages, I usually just round up to 1200 pixels here, but if you want 2 pages, 2400 pixels, or 3 pages would be 3600. We'll leave it at the 1999 or 1299. Wait, 1199. I think that's what it was.
And that's the first thing that people, when they start using Page Designer, that they find confusing. And why did they do it? Is because you have to enter your dimensions in pixels, not in inches or anything like that. So yeah, if you pick your page size with the standard one, then it does it for you. But if you want any kind of custom sizing, you have to do it in pixels. There's no option to enter your data specifically in inches or centimeters or anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, so you have to do some mental math, and you can also use this if you want to go very slow. But we'll just, actually we can just do the one page. And then I never mess with the width. I guess you could if you wanted to do something really, really different, but awesome. So here's, it already loaded 2 fields in here. So there's these 2 examples or example fields, and then we can pull in other fields. So starting off, there's static elements and then fields from the table. So this one is a field from the table, and you can resize it a few different ways. So I guess you can change, if something is longer than the box, it doesn't show. Is that right?
correct. It doesn't have like a free flowing. It'll cut off.
Yeah. So like won't go down the line basically. Whereas Google Docs would.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with regular word processors, the reason for that being in
They sponsored a
Google
publicized
Docs,
attempt
it's
by
like
shooter Jerry Mitchell
just
to
one
challenge Ed McGivern's
text box,
speed shooting
essentially.
record set back in 1932.
So this is a lot more, so I haven't used this in a while. So this is a lot more similar to Google Slides, where like you can have like text box up here, and it doesn't like go on to the next slide when you enter information.
Yeah. Yeah, basically there's that bounding box for each element that you're going to have, and that's the maximum size that it will be.
Yeah. And then you can resize pictures as well. Similar thing. If you want to come over here and change the height.
Once again, in pixels.
Yep. Rebecca just joined, and we are working on Page Designer today. That is the fun thing.
Awesome. My favorite.
If you have any that you would like to share, feel free.
Do I have any that I can share?
So those are the first. So there's already 2 fields in here, but we'll also pull in the type. So this shows in the similar format to the Airtable base, since it's a single select. I'm not sure why they wanted to bring it in that way. I feel like, do you guys know if there's any way to change the how it
I
looks?
just write a formula that outputs that field.
You
and
don't
use the
have to.
formula.
If you do, if you go out of here, you're able to have like just a text box, and then you can tell it which fields to include. And then
Okay.
that, yeah, so it will report it as text. So you don't need to clutter your
Oh,
piece
that's
with
smart.
formulas.
So if
I'm
I
gonna
bring
be rebuilding a bunch of page designers now.
So underneath content, you do exactly as it tells you.
Okay.
Field name,
Well,
like that.
So single curly braces around the field name.
Nice. I did not know that.
The problem with that, though, is if you change the field name, then it breaks. Actually can't. I think it breaks.
I believe it is.
You can change a few different things over here. So you can change the font size. So obviously this one's a lot bigger. You can change. So this is essentially, this is like a concatenate formula without having to do all that. Like you could type.
It's like how you would type in an automation for writing an email.
Cool. Let's see. If I miss stuff that you guys think is important to know, let me know. So that's the difference between these 2. I like this a lot better for the single select. Does it do the same thing for multi-select? Like with an array?
Should do it with any field.
Does it comma separate them? Do you know? We'll try it. Okay, nice. So other fields to pull in here would be notes. And do you guys know how it works with rich text? Does it pull in rich text?
It should if you're using the regular way, so not doing the sort of hack we just kind of talked about, but if we're like doing the exactly one field and concatenating different field names together, it should come.
So if we do it this way and like if this is rich text and we include it in here, it won't do it. But if we just pull the field directly, it will. Okay,
At least I think that's what I read.
I guess we can just test it out. So let's see. Yep. So here we have Painter active is not in bold versus it is here. I feel like this is kind of me learning some of this stuff as well because I haven't used Page Designer in so long.
Yeah, and that specific kind of topic that we're talking about right now has been a very big point of pain for me throughout my career with Airtable so far. And the best way I've found so far, because a lot of times we need like a customer's name boldened into a field. And you can't use the whole like dispersed text and make it bold. And so what I've had to do is write a series of formulas and automations to format the text the way that it needs to be. And then using the API, the automation literally copies it from the formula output to a long text field and it comes out bold in that way. But if you just copy and paste it yourself, it will not, it will just have the markdown that you typed in. you have to use the API. Did any of that make sense?
Yeah.
It
Okay.
makes sense to me. If we need another explanation. I can-
But you're not talking about using it in Page Designer, you're talking about somewhere else, right?
Yeah, no,
Like an email.
no, in Page Designer, you just have to then put that field kind of in its own paragraph. I might be able to show something. Hold on.
You want to share your screen?
Just a second. I gotta see if that's a place that I can show. I do have a place that I can show. Oh my God, Airtable's so slow today. Is it slow for anybody else?
Mine was fairly slow. I was demoing it with a client and it would not work at all on the browser, but it worked on my desktop app.
Okay. So I have to kind of hide the actual content, but you can see enough to know what's going on. So basically, this is a list of addresses. This is a list of subdivisions. And we have to say that this company paid for this address for this subdivision. And it's like a legally formatted text. And so it has to be a certain way. It's like approved jargon and it was written by lawyers, basically, is what I'm trying to say. And so this formula right here literally just adds in the markdown for you. And if you need to format a date or whatever, you can do all of that in here.
I did a similar formula to that for a client that was uploading to Shopify, and they wanted their like description, like HTML, like the same.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I
so,
did that.
and this, I've said before, like I would make up whole documents and people wouldn't use them strictly because you couldn't bold in the customer's name. And so finally I was like, okay, we have to settle this. There has to be an answer. I think Camille, one of you two, was actually the one that helped me solve it. But basically what this automation does is when I say go, it finds that record and pastes that formatting into this long text field with rich text turned on. Note that is important. And then that is dispersed in this document. And I just made it its own paragraph. So in the actual Page Designer, which I can't open because information, this is static text. This is that dynamic text from that notes to field. And then this is more static text. And again, static text. And then I'm able to disperse, dynamic text out here. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's pretty good. So basically what you're doing is you have to have an extra rich text field where you copy over the formula.
Yeah, that's the only way that I've found to be able to get, because like parts of that are static and parts of that little section are dynamic. So hold on. Like it does have, so like these owner located at, this is all static text. So I need these things dispersed throughout here because of the different lengths. One customer might have a really long name and one doesn't, or whatever. And I need to be able to put, just output text in the middle of there.
Mhm. And it looks like you're manually creating the markdown syntax that Airtable uses. But if, for example, you had a roll-up field of a long text field, or a roll-up of a rich text field where the original rich text field had bold and italic and that kind of stuff, that's the one thing where it's haven't found a good way of doing that without getting into scripting, because the roll-up field loses the fact that there was bold in the original linked record.
Anything that looks at a rich text field loses the rich text except for a lookup field. Everything else is just text. If you're looking at data coming through the API, through scripting, etc., it's going to be reported as just text. From my experience, I haven't found any kind of thing that shows it where the syntax is.
But a lookup works.
Well, a lookup will show how the field is originally. Anything else will not.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like a roll-up field, it wouldn't.
Yes, roll-up fields relate things because it's concatenating things down. Even if it's still an array, it's more or less a string when you really think about it.
So back to my art collection is one thing. So I guess kind of the next place that people typically go that I see a lot of questions is having line items on a PDF. Kuvan, does your potential new solution have line item support?
That's what I'm working on.
That's the dream. Awesome. So I think before to really show this one, I'm going to just duplicate one of these. To the other. The reason why I'm doing that is so you can see from Marcel, there's 2 records, so we'll actually have like a real array there, or a better looking array. So here, if you want to bring in line items, you can do that with this. So a better one would be Marcel here has 2. So if there were line items here, we can add other fields. And I haven't used this one as much. I actually just started playing around with another tool called, it was from a guy in Optimizei's. What's it, document or AirDocs. And it does a similar thing to this. So here you can pull in different columns from the other table. Oh, accidentally pulled in. Be nice if we can see all these. So you can make it however wide you would want. You can see all this. So price paid, notes, and you can also rearrange these. So here's the line item support, and also on an invoice, you would probably want to have a total. So if you want to have a total, then on like the total is just going to be one amount. So you would want that here. So you would want to roll up. If this was the invoice, it would be some. So if I edit that layout again, I could have like the total right here. And that doesn't make much sense unless you put some stuff around it. Is there anything really fun that you can do with adding like stock text or like static text?
What do you mean?
Make headers.
Define fun.
Fun to us. Maybe not fun to the everyday person, but interesting. Aside from just like typing in total price.
And then putting in the field name and the curly braces.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So to
Go ahead and put it in the curly braces in the content.
Well, to illustrate
Oh,
to illustrate a point here, when you
Yeah.
apply styling to each text box, it's for the whole text box. So if you wanted the total itself to be bold or italics or something, you would want them as separate.
Yeah.
But if you don't care, then you can do both.
great point. That looks a lot better.
Yeah.
So,
And
other,
then-
oh, you could rotate it. Let's see.
Then the other thing that you can do is if you go back on that number, I believe if you change the formatting options in the field itself, so for example, the number of decimal places that are shown or what the currency symbol is, I believe that those are carried over. So for example, in that roll-up, change the formatting options to have, say, some decimal places and you could change the currency symbol.
I don't know if I have any.
You can actually type any character here.
Can I like just type?
So you could use that for anything. It doesn't have to be currency.
So see, now you have your decimal places and you've got, whatever other currency symbol that you have.
That's slick.
I didn't know you could just put whatever you want in there.
I mean, mostly it's either dollars or euros, but you can actually put anything that you want. The one thing that you cannot do is if you are in Europe and you use a comma as your decimal symbol and you use a period as your grouping symbol, Airtable doesn't have an option for formatting numbers like that in the number field. So then you need to have a formula field that will actually change the formatting of yours and format it as a text field with the grouping and decimal symbol of your choice. It's
Okay,
a plug.
this is probably like the most American thing I will ever say in my life, but I had no idea that that was a thing.
It's a thing, and it's something that most people in the United States, they don't realize is that in other countries, they format their numbers slightly differently. But that's where I insert my plug for ready-made formulas, where you can have a formula field that will say, you know what, I want, this is my currency symbol, this is the number of decimal places that I want, this is how I want to swap my commas and my periods.
Would that use a switch formula, or do you just do the whole formula, or do the whole currency formatting in a formula?
It takes, so what the numbers is, it formats a number as a text string, and it's a very, very long formula. It's a mess if you're trying to manually create it, but it's just a really crazy long formula.
How many like commas does it is it good for?
Oh, like how large of a number?
Yeah.
I think I've tested it up to 15 digits. Maybe more. I know if you get to like the larger numbers where Airtable won't actually show it in a formula field properly, but it like switches to scientific notation, then it won't work.
Okay. Like
But
it
you-
won't try to scientific notation, or it won't add commas.
When Airtable would convert the number to a scientific notation in a formula field rather than displaying it as a series of digits, then the formula doesn't work. I have a really hard time picturing a practical reason where you would actually need to have a formula that big without needing lots of other workarounds anyway.
Just for fun. The only.
One note about these kind of grids is you can't really like make them print on separate pages if they're too long. And you have to form your static text or the rest of your stuff around how long that grid could possibly be. So, if one page has two linked records on it, but another page has 12, and you only set it up for the two linked record, like what we're looking at right now, if you were to just drag that green box to where the second record ended, it would, you wouldn't be able to see the rest of them at the bottom.
These controls up
I
here.
do that all the time. Don't feel bad.
So this is the example, is it cuts off even though there's a few more.
And so using the old Ben's little, or I don't know where you got it from, but the page designer hack to change the length and make it multiple pages by changing the pixels, you can get some level of multi-page printing, but again, it's going to cut off parts of your grid. It's not going to like nicely push that row down to the next page the way it will if you use print view.
Yeah, so I got that hack from Jen Rudd, who is in, she's one of the open siders. I haven't talked to her in quite a long time, but she gave me that hack. And the other thing that she added, and I think this is in the video as well, was like, how do you know when the next one starts? And so let me share my other screen. She actually recommends going to Canva. So you guys get to see my YouTube thumbnail Canva, because that's the first one. But if you go to Canva and you create a poster, I think you can do just about anything, and then you just change the layout. So you resize it to pixels, and was it 975?
11.99 times, hold on, I have a base for this, wait. $23.98 would be 2 pages. Pixels.
927 is the other one. So 927. So you want to do this just by one though, one at a time anyways.
Oh, gotcha, sorry.
No worries. So here, we'll just resize this. And if I change this to gold, and then download this. So the purpose of this is basically give yourself a background on this. So now I have this, and I'll reshare Airtable. So I think this is actually kind of tricky. So you insert an image, but you need to have, what is it? You have to have a publicly accessible URL.
Yes.
Let's see. Where do you?
So normally what I do is I'll have in my base, I'll have like a resources table, and the image will be an attachment field, and then I'll use a formula to grab the URL of the attachment. And I'll just use that one.
So you would come in here and then just take this,
Mm-hmm.
or you would just reference. No, you would copy that.
Well, often it's in my resources table, not in the same actual table as the record that I want to have in Page Designer. So, so like this is how I'll do like a company logo or something like that.
Yeah. So there, this is sized right, but it's not quite the size we want. That's a good tip, Kuvan. I was kind of stumped on how I was going to do that. Let's see. Do you have do you use a formula to just give you that URL, or do you just copy and paste it like that?
Well, I use ready-made formulas.
Oh yeah, yes, of course.
Can I share?
It's actually a fairly short formula. It's just because I have it, and it's so easy to, you get all of the formulas, with one license for that base. So I just use it. It's easier than typing it.
I don't remember having the issue of this not quite lining up.
I've always had that issue since I started using Airtable.
Okay. Well,
Can I share my way?
Yeah, I guess before we move on, the last thing that I would do is send it to the back, which I can't remember. Okay, here.
Yep.
Send it back. That way everything else shows up in front of it. And on your template, I would probably include like something so you know when it's about at the end of the page, or like some design, maybe something at the top of the logo, like Kuvan mentioned at the top of that page. That way, sorry, you have an idea of what's up next. And then what Rebecca was saying was have this on the last page so it can keep going. But Rebecca, you can share now.
So basically what I do is I just create one of those static text fields and set the height to 1199. And you can keep it like an inch wide or whatever. I'll share here to show. And then if you put something in here, that lorem ipsum goes away. And then what do we say, 2398?
Yeah.
And then you could even duplicate that if you want. And so as you're on here working, you can see the outlines of that.
Interesting.
And then you
You
just
can-
delete them, or they won't
Yeah.
print. You can leave them there.
The other thing you can do is you can actually put them on the margins on the outside of the page.
Oh, yeah.
And then you can actually have like text in there explaining what they are.
Yep. That's very, oh my gosh. I'm totally going to use that.
Does anybody have any fun page designers they would like to share?
Mine are all like lame and like work stuff.
I guarantee if anybody is watching this, they will enjoy seeing anything you're using Page Designer for, because it'll give them some idea. Otherwise, I can do something in the sales CRM, or we can find another template base.
So one thing I use it for like 99% of I don't even know how to explain, but like I have to send this stuff like back to the tax office to say, hey, can I please have this particular sticker renewed? And then I also need certain information on that when it comes back because it's not anywhere else on this document. And so I use it to do these like overlays. And so this is information for both the person that I'm giving them to and the person that gets them back. So like this is their information, this is their information, this is my information, my information, my information. I also, there are certain documents where, and we can peep these real fast, but I can't stay on them too long. Like this right here, they have to be able to find that on that particular page. So like imagine that page you just saw with that little grid. And this is showing them exactly on that page where that's at, because for whatever reason, they have an extremely difficult time with that. And I've fought them for months and months and months. And actually when I did it this time, because I still had problems, because basically it just says, hey, it's on this side of the page. This is the line number. This is the truck number. But they would still have to like go down the page to find the actual place. And that was not good enough. So now we're actually going through and doing them line by line, putting a whole little box around it.
How many page designers do you have in there?
So for that one, going to keep in mind, I only have to do this once, and I print them and then I attach them all back to their records, and it's one and done. Takes me a few hours one time a year. But I have 31 for the last document that I did, and there's 51 for that one, but they're all duplicate and move things a few pixels. Like, it's not a difficult thing. I think that document probably took me about 9 hours, but only because if you print to PDF from Page Designer and then re-upload it to Airtable and try to print it through Page Designer again or at all, it is unreadable. If you try to use PDFs in the backgrounds of Page Designers instead of images, JPEG images, it's pretty much unreadable. I don't know what the difference is there, but like you saw, a lot of my Page Designers are an actual paper document in the back and me overlaying some sort of information on the front. And the other thing I use it for is just building invoices. And that's kind of the same thing, because I have an invoice template. You know, the company gets letterhead and stuff. And so those look like this. And then I also use it for labels. So I just use address labels like you would put on the front of an envelope. And I have painstakingly lined all of these up, but once you get them lined up, you're good. They'll usually print at least 90% okay. I do make them quite a bit smaller than the actual label so that I don't at least print off of the label.
How is that one working there? So that is like one, those are all pulling from one record and those are just different fields, or is that like a table?
So this actually, trucks, which these are individual trucks, get linked to a sort of task. So like this right here is the trucks that I sent to the tax office to have their stickers renewed today. And so I say, so I document every single move that I make. Everything that I do is documented, like, to a ridiculous extent, because if I don't, managers come back and say, well, I did that, or I didn't do that, or I didn't get that, or I was on vacation, or whatever possible excuse. And so this is a really big table that runs a whole bunch of stuff, but they get linked into here. You can see them all linked. And
So-
then I look up their labels.
So Rebecca,
Oh,
what we're seeing
I'm
in your
sorry.
share, are we looking at 20 records there? Like right
There's
there in
another
your-
step in the middle that I missed. So after the task is created, I then have, this is maybe a little more drawn out than I anticipated, but in the actual table where these trucks are, I have a view that is filtered to where any of these linked fields on that side, if they're not empty and they are part of this request. So what that allows me to do is, I'll just recreate it actually. You can see they all just went away. So you see the top unit is 63. Now the top unit's 149A. And so I can literally just hit enter, or enter tab, enter tab, enter tab, enter tab, enter. I'm sure I could probably do this with a script, but I don't know scripting yet.
So that is all one record.
Yeah, all of these are
No,
pulling.
these are individual linked records, and yes, you're linking one record to one space. I don't have any special trick for that.
As
So you
opposed
can-
to
you're working-
using Page Designer to show multiple records on one sheet of paper.
Yes, and then the other thing that it does is by tagging this task, it looks up all of the address labels for the plants that they'll go to. And does the same thing, only with that, because I'm using lookups, it does it automatically. Sorry, I have a broken automation in here. So now you can see it's pulling in those address labels or attention labels, whatever you want to call them, and those are on. And I just have buttons that lead to these things. So I can just hit.
So that's a button that opens Page Designer.
And I just hit an envelope and it brings up my kind of positioned labels. The thing about this is that it's like one spot per plant, but if that plant doesn't have any mail, it's still, I just have to go through and move these little things. Like this is actually supposed to be my signature, not our logo. So usually it has the address label, my signature, and the date that I mailed the item. But these are static. And so I have to go through and just delete them or move them to where they need to be. You know, I still have problems I haven't fully worked out.
Do you want to show the functionality of that button for those wondering?
Sure. It's literally just a button with the action as open in Page Designer. Pick your dashboard and then which app on that dashboard. And then you have a button.
So now the biggest limitation that I see with Page Designer is exporting it. Like I think you can make it look pretty good in there. But
As long as you're gonna print it.
Huh?
As long as you're gonna print it.
Yeah. That's like, so long as you're printing it, it's great. But here, I'll share mine. So if you want to export it, what I see actually a lot of people doing, or what they would love to do, is they might have another attachment field here. And we have this Page Designer that's based on this record in the artist table. And a lot of people get confused because they're like, why can't I just take this Page Designer and have it upload right here and then send an email with that attached? Yeah, so I don't know exactly what is limited at Airtable to not implement something like that. But from my understanding, sorry, what was that?
I do. It's because their process behind the scenes for an attachment field requires a link to a file attaching something to it. So because there is no link URL rather from Page Designer, that's why there's no button that just says attach what's currently visible.
So, but from what I understand, what you're doing whenever you put an attachment in an attachment field is putting a document in their box, basically. Am I right in that assumption?
More or less. So the file picker that Airtable uses is, you know, a library, if that makes sense. It's like they provide a particular service that is file picking, and their process involves uploading that file somewhere temporarily and then moving it over to where Airtable stores files.
And so why, or it doesn't have to be a why question. It can just be a general question, but to me, there should be a way to just have this go do that real and from here and take each individual page and give it its box URL.
So
and
it
feed
it
back.
could be done. I mean, so there's a couple steps that need to be involved. One is it needs to convert the page designer to a PDF, and then it needs to send that to Airtable. It could technically be done. They'd have to just, add that code into it. But part of the problem is Page Designer is one of the older apps that was built on an SDK that they're no longer using. So they're not really doing a whole lot of maintenance on Page Designer. And it'd be so much functionality that they'd have to add to Page Designer, where it's going back using an older SDK of how they're putting it in, that I think they've just decided it's just not worth the effort for them to do it right now, especially as there are many new third-party ways of automating that. And I think it's one of those things where they say, well, there are enough workarounds that they're not putting their development effort into adding that natively to Page Designer, or the existing version of Page Designer.
Yeah. So then to actually do this, to export Page Designer, you have to go through the process I just showed there, and then drag it in here, and then you can send in an email. I would love to see, kind of like you guys were just talking there, able to just export this. I also never knew you could do multiple records at a time.
Mhm.
So when you print here, you can choose to do records in a specific view. I've always only ever done current record.
Yeah, and so those documents that I showed where I was overlaying information, it's all contingent on that. It's just looking at a particular view that's filtered the way that I need it for the documents that I need. And then it overlays the information and it prints the whole view.
Yeah, I use that records in a specific view, and then in a grid when I have the thing that prints out name tags. So I usually have a view for selecting which name tags you actually want to print, and then it's based on that view. You print the records in that view, and then it prints out however many name tags you want. If you only want 3 name tags, they print out on 1 piece of paper. If you want to print off 30 name tags, then you have 3 pieces of paper.
Okay. This kind of, so I didn't know that. This kind of changes the game for Page Designer in my mind as actually being sometimes useful rather than, so how do you, so if you do in a grid, how do you choose like how many on one page? Can you share?
It's something, but basically on the paper size.
Mhm.
So on the Page Designer, like I look at whatever the size of one name tag is and convert it to pixels, and I put that as the size of the Page Designer page, and then it prints it on however many it lays it out.
Okay.
So usually I start off by saying, measuring it and then printing out the, like a blank box that shows the outlines, and I'll say how many there are, put it on the PDF, make sure it matches up with my actual sticker sheet, and go from there.
Nice. That makes sense. Looks like Camille had to jump. I'm still not sure I entirely follow how that works, but it seems I can think of many use cases for it for some of my clients.
Yeah. So I'm looking at one of the ones where I have now where, so for example, this one where like on the settings for the Page Designer, my width is set in pixels so that it's the size of one name tag. But then when I go to print, then I say records in the view in a grid, and then my page size is a regular 8.5 by 11, and then I have to tweak the margins a little bit.
Gotcha. So I think I get it now. So you set the size of the actual Page Designer as like a fraction of the print size.
Yeah. So for example, on this one I'm looking at, it's like about 436 pixels wide by 218 pixels tall.
Okay. That
And
makes,
so it just looks like a little, like a little small rectangle.
awesome. What else could we cover with Page Designer? I'm not really sure that there's much else. I guess you could present it. There's the
Yeah.
presenter view. I don't know if anybody uses the presenter view. If you click present. Let's see. Do you know of anything else, Kuvan?
So did you go through all the different ways where you can choose and rearrange which table items you want when you're doing line items?
Oh, so when you're doing line items, I don't think I briefly went over this,
Yeah,
but here is where you choose columns
yeah.
and then, you could filter records. So if you only wanted to show certain records, you could do that, which I think, yes, if you only wanted to show, for example, insured pieces, some of these are not insured, obviously.
Yeah, one of the nice things about that is about when you're picking which fields you want in your line items is you do not have to show the primary field, that leftmost field.
That is nice. That's actually very nice. So I guess maybe we can explain what this is. So filter records from the art pieces table. So if you have a view that has a filter on it, which for us is uninsured pieces, there's just this one here. And so it'll only ever show records from that. And then what Camille was saying was this, if you don't want to show this field, which is the primary field, which typically you can't hide in like any sharing or anything like that. In this grid here, you can hide it. So if I want to take out name, that's awesome. That's nice. Let's see. Can have padding. What else? You can change this fonts and everything on the headings, row styles. Can you do anything about like the grid lines?
Yeah. So you can choose which borders you show, but it's still kind of limited.
Hmm. So if I choose, okay. Oh, this just adds more borders. That's not what I want. Did I pass? Oh, here's table borders. I feel like Rebecca, you could do this with, I guess it would have a lot of waste of space, but you could do this if you just linked all of your printable tags to one record and just take off the borders.
One thing that I found about it is that you really don't have control over the column width.
Okay, that's interesting. So first, so even if you like switch these around or anything, it just chooses for you basically.
It chooses the width for you. So for example, say you had my notes and you said, actually, I wanted my notes to be fairly narrow and then the photo to be much wider. I haven't found a way of doing that.
Can you change the height of each cell?
No, I have not found a way of changing the height or width of the cells.
Interesting.
You can do some level of that, changing the line spacing.
Like changing the grid lines?
But like in this particular example, say if you wanted the notes to be, half as wide as it currently is,
Mhm.
and then the photos to be really, really big. Oh, well, what is it? Wait, well, linked attachment sizing. Oh no, fixed height, automatic width. Yeah. Image size. So, oh, that's interesting. So you can actually add a little bit to the image size.
I was trying to figure, maybe I just need to make this like 500. I don't see, unless am I doing something wrong here? But it's not really adding much. Linked attachment.
What if you change the image size?
Oh,
Yeah, so you can change the image size. And then automatically adjust things. But it looks like that's only for the image.
and that's only changing the height.
Yeah, so you have the link attachment sizing that says a fixed height and an automatic width. So your 200 is your fixed height. You could probably change it the other way around.
Yeah. Interesting. So here you can at least, so I guess so long as you have similarly, like the similar aspect ratios in your attachment photos, you can sort of maintain the width of this column, the attachments.
Yeah.
But that is the only one.
Yeah, but not of the text fields. I have to jump now. This has
Thanks,
been
Mark.
interesting. So take care.
Awesome.
See
Thank
you
you.
later. Bye.
Awesome.
It's 7:06, my friend.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna end this one here. So if you have any questions about Page Designer, throw them in the comments section. I think we covered just about everything about Page Designer. Again, the biggest limitation is just exporting it here. So you can't like automatically just send it in an email. You have to download it. When you print it, save it as a PDF and then send it. That's the biggest thing that I don't like about it. But you have any final comments or anything?
I don't think so. I will say that if you're doing a lot of repetitive document creation, just do yourself a favor and pay for it. I don't mean to, be inaccessible or whatever, but it's going to save you a lot of time, a lot of heartache, a lot of trying to figure all of this stuff out. Of course, we will always help you 100%. But if you are in a big business and trying to, do thousands of pages, like printing invoices for a whole company through here would not be practical. There is a certain level where the paid option is. And I guess this is already kind of a paid option because it's only available on the Pro plan, but there's like a form stack integration.
Yeah, we'll do another one about all the different page designer alternatives.
Yeah, so
Paid
the other thing too is a lot of people are going to these portals instead and just using, for one, a lot of companies want a portal to be able to go to get their data on their time. And so if you can provide that for a company, that's a really big deal. The other thing is for you to be able to get to their data in real time. A lot of times the systems you're having to pull this data out of they're cumbersome. That's why you're trying to put it into something else. And so portals really are kind of the standard right now. And if to me personally, it might be a hot take or whatever, but if you're not using one, you're not using Airtable to its full potential.
Yeah.
Depending
Right.
on your use case.
Yeah. It really depends on what you're looking to share. and at what level. Sometimes a shared view can work, but a lot of times it's too limited.
That's it.
Awesome. Well, we will see you guys next week. Thank you to everybody who came tonight on Off the Record. I think we'll have quite a few people back next week, back in action. So we'll see you then.